Hey guys, it's Christy, and this is the Crafty Country, where we do anything crafty or for your home on a budget. I hope you stick around and consider subscribing. In today's video, I'm going to be using this pumpkin wreath form and making a sweater pumpkin. I picked up a sweater at a thrift store, and I just liked the texture of the front of it, so I thought it would be adorable to make this pumpkin wreath with. So if you notice, the back of it does not have the texture, but the front does. So I'm going to use the front on the front and the back on the back. So the first thing I do is I have to cut this sweater up. I end up taking off the sleeves, the turtleneck, and the trim around the bottom to where I just have like the front panel and the back panel. And I do save the sleeves. I save all the pieces because I am going to make some of the styrofoam pumpkins. I'm going to cover those with the sleeves, and I think they will fit down in the sleeves just perfect to where I can make a little matching set of those styrofoam pumpkins to go with the wreath. Now that you have all your pieces cut apart, you're going to want to get that back panel that does not have the texture to it and lay it down flat on your table. And there I'm just showing you that this is the piece that doesn't have the texture. There is one side of this sweater, I believe it's the outside, that is more ribbed, and I decided I didn't want that to show, so I put that facing myself. So the less desirable side, in my opinion, is what I had facing up right here. That way the prettier side would be showing if someone puts it on a glass door or whatever. If you can see the back at any point, you'll be able to see the nicer side. So here I am just taking some hot glue and gluing the pumpkin frame to the sweater. Now that's all it takes is some hot glue, because this sweater obviously has so much texture to it that it's going to just hook right on. So I make sure I let the bottom of this dry completely and have it pulled tight the way I want it before the glue dries. So make sure it's exactly how you want it, and then leave it set completely. That way when you go to do the top and the sides, you can pull it tight and that bottom is not going to give out on you. Now that you have the bottom good and cool, I like to lay down parchment paper underneath when I do hot glue work. That way I don't get glue all over my table. And parchment paper, the glue, once it cools, it just peels right off, so it's perfect. So here I am going to line up my sweater again and make sure I have it pulled tight all the way around. There's no way to pull it completely tight at this point. I'm just kind of making sure it'll be able to stretch far enough. So here you see I hot glue just one spot here at this point at the top, and then I will go to the other side and do the same thing, just so the sweater is where I need it, and it'll be easier for me to do the rest of it after I get this two little spots cooled off. The sweater's not going to be moving on me. So if you notice here, I end up laying my scissors and my wire cutters on the frame while it cools. That way nothing is going to move. And then I want to do the same thing on the other side, just to hold it in place. And then after that spot cools, then I'll work my way across the entire top and then down the sides. Now that the top is totally cooled off, I want to work on the sides, but first I went ahead and decided to cut away a lot of the excess fabric off the top and the bottom, just to make it a little bit easier to work with. It was getting a little tricky trying to rotate the pumpkin around, dragging all that fabric, and now that I don't need it anymore, I'm just going to cut it off, because now all I have to do is grab those two sections on each side and pull those out and glue them down. So not necessary to keep the top and bottom anymore. Now, the only trick to doing the sides is to obviously make sure you keep it pulled tight. I know I keep saying that, but if you want it to look nice on the back, should you have a glass door you're hanging it on, or a window, or anywhere where you're going to see the back side of it, you want that pulled tight and not all wrinkled up and messy looking. It's still going to look a little messy on the back where I have to fold over the edges, but not quite as bad as it could look. So I want to try to do as little damage as possible to the back of it, or the front for that matter. When you do glue these sides over like I'm doing right here, I'm rolling all the edges over as I go now. I used these finger protectors that I got from Dollar Tree because with this fabric, the hot glue will go straight through and burn your finger. I did learn that the hard way in the beginning. Like, I should have known. I mean, I've burned myself enough with hot glue. If you use your glue gun enough, it's going to happen. But didn't take me long to figure it out. And I started using these finger protectors to push down the fabric and glue them to each other. And that'll help hold it onto the wreath frame as well. Now that you have the back secured, it is time for the front. So all you really need to do is lay it across your pumpkin wreath form and pull it a little bit tight, but you don't want to do it too tight and stretch it out to where you'd be able to see the wreath form through it. So you just kind of have to find your happy medium. I just laid mine across it, and then if you see, I kind of had to mess with it a little bit to get it to lay across it. So all I did was I glued down the sides first, and then I kept picking it up to see how it would lay, just to lay across it. Because like I said, I didn't want to pull it too tight and have the wreath frame showing through. Now, once the sides had cooled, I kind of did the opposite of the way I did the back panel. I slowly worked my way around from the sides and did the top and the bottom instead. Like on the back, the way I did the top and the bottom first. I don't know why. I think I just kind of wanted to see how tight it needed to hold from side to side. And then after that, the way a sweater is, if you pull it from side to side, it's going to open up the threading. But if you pull it from top to bottom, it's going to pull it a little too tight. So for some reason, this is just the way I did it. It worked out really well for me. And I love the way it laid once it was finished. Once I got the sweater glued down all the way around the edge, and that's all I did was I just glued it down on the edge. I didn't do any underneath. So now there's some spaces where I missed that I can see, so I can go back and glue those down. But then once I know everything is glued down all the way around, I want to cut off the excess sweater. So I go around and just trim off all the edges, and I just leave a little bit. I don't want to cut it so close to where the threading comes loose. I want the glue to hold the threading together, but because you know if a sweater can unravel. So I'm using the glue to hold it together. And then once I get it all cut off and I know that all the threading is secured, I want to glue down those little pieces that would be hanging over, just to flatten it out and make it a little bit nicer. It ends up, on my future pumpkin wreaths, I think I'm going to find a better way to tuck in the overhang. So if anyone has an idea on how I could better do that, drop it in the comments below, because I really just wasn't sure. Like, maybe I should get some yarn that matches and like stitch over it to where you don't see it and it pulls it tight. I'm not sure. So if you have any ideas, I'm all ears. Somehow I actually lost the footage on how I covered the stem of this pumpkin, but all I did was I used some twine that I got from Dollar Tree, and I hot glued it down by the base there at the top of the sweater, and I made sure to glue it to the sweater so the glue would hold it better there and it wouldn't slide off the stem. So all I did to wrap it was I just did an over-under thing where I don't know if you've ever laced up a pair of tennis shoes the way you would go under and then you come out and you go over and then you go under, over, under, over. It wove it together really nice, and you really couldn't even tell that it was woven. It just covered really nice. And I made sure to glue it on both sides at the top. That way it would not slide up and off. So now that it is all covered, it is time to make the decorations for the top. In previous DIYs, I have used bows or floral or all kinds of different pretty things. For this one, I didn't want to use too much because I didn't want to take away from the pretty texture of the sweater. So I just used this brown and orange plaid ribbon that I got from Dollar Tree. And I don't know if they have carried this in previous years. I've never seen it. But like I've said before this past year last couple years, since I lost my eyesight and then the pandemic and being in quarantine and all that good jazz, I wasn't heavy into crafting like I am now. So some of this I've just never seen. But so new to me makes it wonderful. Now when it comes to making this bow, it's a simple bow that I made, and I will link in the description a tutorial on how to do it, because sometimes when I get doing these bows or different things, it's like I forget I'm recording and I keep it pulled too close to me so I can see it better. So you can't see how I make the bow here, so that was a fail on my part, but it's super easy and I'll link it in the description. Now once I got the bow made, I just tied it off with the pipe cleaner, and I find those easier because they're easier to grab a hold of, and you're getting it tightened down well. Once I had my bow made, I just used that same pipe cleaner that I had twisted it together with, and I ran it through the sweater. I ran both sides of it through the sweater and made sure that I got it around 2 of the bars of the wreath frame, and I actually had it under that top main beam, like the bar that goes all the way around the entire pumpkin. I had it below that, and then I went around 2 of the crossbars. That way when I ran it all the way through the back, I knew that it was covered and it wasn't going to slide around or do anything, and the sweater would hold that in place. So that's all it takes. I just hot glued the word thankful on there like I said, and there it is. Nice and simple, but elegant and beautiful. Thank you all for watching. I hope I helped inspire you, and I hope you like this DIY. If you did, please hit the like, give me the thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe before you go. I'll see you next time.